We got married in 1976, and our first child, Kate, was born, and she's terrific. She's a super, super kid. Kate was 3 years old when our second child, Joe, came along in 1986. When Joe was born, our pediatrician came and put her stethoscope to Joe's chest, and her immediate response was, "Oh, shoot, we've got a big problem here. It sounds like a washing machine in there." And we discovered that Joe was born with a congenital heart defect, a condition called truncus arteriosus. And there's 3 different severities, and Joe's was the worst. His heart's about that big, and they've taken it out of his body to do surgery on it and put it back in his body. That Joe survived the first surgery in itself was quite a miracle. And long story short, we ended up at home in Denver.
And nobody knew that the high altitude in a combination with a cold was going to cause Joe stress, and it busted open his heart again.
Joe was scheduled for his second open heart surgery at 11 months old. And when he survived that surgery, we looked at each other and decided that we could never go home to Colorado. So we basically bailed out of our lives, and we relocated to South Florida. And
we were at sea level, so Joe...
He started doing really well.
He started doing better.
And then when he was 3, we went back to the surgeon. The surgeon looked at Joe and said,
"Joe needs open heart surgery number 3.
Right now.
Right now." We went to the hospital. Joe went under the knife, but Joe never woke up from his 3rd open heart surgery.
And when I walked in, you and my dad were sobbing in the middle of the hallway, and they were running Joe down the hall in a gurney, and it was one of the scariest moments of my life.
Joe had had a complete right hemisphere stroke, had lost the whole right side of his brain and parts of the left. This delightful, normal little 2-year-old boy who'd had a couple of heart procedures was now in a bed in a coma, and the doctor's telling us that Joe would never recover, and this is the worst possible thing next to death that could have possibly happened.
But I said, as long as I can hold him and carry him in my arms, that we were going to be a family and be together. And so we brought Joe home.
And Joe in a wheelchair was getting speech therapy and physical therapy, and none of it was having any really positive effect on him. So my brilliant wife decided that she was going to go try and find some place for Joe to swim.
so she went looking for a public pool, and there was no
Public pool in Key Largo, thank goodness. And then she went to the hotels that had pools, and they said, "Geez, lady, out of here, you're not a guest."
So I was really depressed, and I was really angry.
And I think by some stroke of very good fortune, my wife saw a little advertisement in the local newspaper for Dolphins Plus.
I called him.
And the owner answered the phone.
And the owner said, "Geez, lady, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles, but..."
We don't do that here. That was enough for Dina. She started to cry.
And the owner of Dolphins Plus said, "Geez, lady, don't cry. Next time you have a free moment..."
If you're in town, come down. So I hung up the phone. It was 11:30.
And I think before he'd hung up the phone, you were walking in the front door.
No,
Almost.
almost. And just as we arrived, this old man, he took one look at me and he went, "Oh no, are you the lady I just spoke to?" And when he said that, I crumbled. I just started to cry. And he was like, "All right, come on." And he brought us in. And then we went down on a dock that was right in front of us. And that's where we met Fonzie. All the dolphins came over to the dock, and Fonzie came up right in front of us, and Joe giggled. And I cried. I was just, I was overwhelmed at that moment because I had not heard that giggle for a long time. And this dolphin, it appeared to me that he pushed all the others away, as if to say, "This kid is mine." It was just a magical, magical moment. And then when it was time to leave, I got really sad and I started to cry again. And the owner looks at me and he says, "Now are you crying?" And I explained what was going on and that I hadn't heard Joe laugh in a really long time and how broken our family was. And so then he said to me, "Okay, all right. Well, you'll come back whenever you can, right?" And I said, "Okay." and I've never left.
Yeah.
After my third open heart surgery at age 3, I was left completely paralyzed on my left side. I couldn't see out of my left eye. My left arm was frozen stiff and clenched to my chest. I had no maneuverability of my left side. I was pretty much a wreck. Doctors told my parents to stick me in an institution.
But my brilliant wife would take Joe back to the facility and started incorporating some therapy techniques into Joe's interactions with the dolphin.
Joe trusted Fonzie and wanted to play with him so badly that he would do anything to do that. And so I created Left Hand Fonzie. And I told Joe that Fonzie was a left-handed dolphin, and so if he tried to feed him with his right hand or he tried to throw a ball with his right hand, that Fonzie wouldn't play with him. And everything we did was to motivate Joe to use his left side again.
And from being fisted and with his arms stuck like this, he would come home, and at night he'd be going open, close, and you could see him trying to work his hand. And finally he could open and close his hand so that he could hold a fish, and enough so that he could hold it out there for Fonzie. Joe's recovery in a year was not complete by any means, but it was pretty amazing to see how powerful the excitement and motivation of being with his new friend Fonzie was working for Joe.
I could have never dreamed years ago that I would still have him at 25.
That's the story. Joe's just amazing.